I moved to Somerset last year, and the best thing about that is that cruise ships sail right past my house. The cruise ship that sails past most often is Ambassador Ambition, and I knew that I just had to book a cruise on it. The kids were desperate to cruise past the house too, but as Ambassador Cruise Line is adults only, they had to stay at home with the dad. But I told them I would wave from the ship. This was my first time cruising from Bristol, and as it's one of the smallest cruise ports in the UK, I wasn't sure what to expect. The drive to the port took about 10 minutes. The port of Bristol is mostly commercial, so we drove past the ship and then lots of cargo ships and lots of brand new vehicles before arriving at this cruise terminal building for check-in. Inside, the building was really small and also very empty, which meant that we could walk straight up to the check-in desk. Just minutes later, we boarded a bus that took us straight to the ship. It was one of the fastest check-ins I've ever experienced. We walked onto the ship and then did what most people do when they board a cruise, which is head straight to the buffet. Then we had a wander around the ship, and from here we could see all across the cargo port, and we got a closer look at some of the vehicle carriers that I regularly see sailing past my house. Soon it was time for the muster drill. On Ambassador Cruises, this is done in person, which I'm not a huge fan of, to be honest. We had to wait for all of the other guests to arrive, so there was a lot of standing around. And then it was really crowded, so it was quite hard to see the crew member demonstrate putting the life jacket on anyway. Then it was time for sail away, which was so exciting. We grabbed a cocktail from the bar and headed up to the top deck. A lot of people were gathered at the very front of the ship, but the view wasn't great from here and you would have to look through the glass. I told the kids that I'd be standing right under the funnel so they could see me, so that's where I went. The ship had to go through a lock to be able to leave the port and enter the Bristol Channel. As it was high tide, there wasn't too much of a difference in the water level, but this took about 20 minutes until the lock gates opened at the front of the ship and we finally set sail. As we sailed along the coast, I saw some incredible houses that I had no idea existed. There were some really stunning mansions here that must have some amazing views across the estuary. A few minutes later, we passed the lighthouse and I knew that my house was about to be visible. Meanwhile, the kids could see our ship coming past the lighthouse and into view. Soon enough, we were able to spot my house and my mum and I began frantically waving, hoping that the kids would see us. I spotted our balcony and my family looked like tiny specks in the distance. It was at this point that I wished I had brought my binoculars. The kids were waving and I called my husband on the phone to see if he could see me and Granny beneath the funnel, and they could. The kids took off their jumpers and waved them in the air, which made it much easier for us to spot them from the ship. I loved the excitement of cruising from my local port, as well as the convenience, and I would absolutely love to do it again. Ambassador Cruise Line sails from 8 regional ports across the UK, so it's incredibly easy to start your cruise, especially if you don't want to travel across the country before beginning your holiday.